President Trump's promise to build a wall on the border with Mexico, a promise he has made over and over and over and over, even today.
The wall gets built, 100%.
But if you think he's going to let Canada get off easy, think again.
People don't realize Canada has been very rough on the United States. Everyone thinks of Canada as being wonderful, and so do I. I love Canada. But they've outsmarted our politicians for many years, and you people understand that.
So it's the North and the South. So what's the deal with Canada and Mexico? Mexico on our southern border gets a wall. The president says it's to stop bad hombres. But way up north, Canada is now on the president's hit list as well. And believe it or not, it's all about timber and milk. So let's discuss now. CNN political commentator Anna Navarro is here, CNN senior economics analyst Stephen Moore, and CNN contributor Jason Kander. Good evening. Good to have all of you on. Stephen, I'm going to start with you. The president said today that Canada's been very rough on the United States and has been taking advantage of us. Of all places, why the tough talk on Canada all of a sudden? What's this all about?
Well, I'm a supporter of Donald Trump's, and I agree with most of what he wants to do on the economy, but this is one area, Don, where I pretty strongly disagree. I think that the whole idea, which was a kind of Reagan vision going back to the 80s of making North America a big free trade zone, is exactly the right thing to do. It's good for all of the countries of North America. But, you know, look, there have been some problems on the south of the border, sure, and those things have to be resolved. But I haven't seen too many people complaining about trade with Canada, and it's not as if they're beating us with lower wages and so on. It's just that sometimes the lumber up there is cheaper to produce, and that makes building homes and other things in the United States cheaper. So I don't really see the economic rationale behind this.
Is he declaring a trade war on Canada, Stephen?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I think that would be taking it too far. But I think, he's trying to send a message that, to some of the Trump voters that he's going to be tough on trade. It's an issue that I just find myself in disagreement with him on. It's not the end of the world, but it is going to make, as I said, Don, it's going to make housing and other kinds of products that we buy that require lumber, they're going to be more expensive. Mm-hmm.
When Prime Minister Trudeau met with the president at the White House in February, the relationship between the two leaders seemed very warm. And I want to play some of what President Trump said during that time.
America is deeply fortunate to have a neighbor like Canada. We have before us the opportunity to build even more bridges. We have a very outstanding trade relationship with Canada. We'll be tweaking it. We'll be doing certain things that are going to benefit both of our countries. It's a much less severe situation than what's taken place on the southern border.
So, Jason, is this still true, or is trouble now brewing on both the southern and the northern borders?
Oh, well, Don, everything has changed, because when he said that, he wasn't coming up on 100 days with no wins. So obviously the situation is totally different now. Now you got to take an action that's actually not all that unreasonable and had been in the works, for a while. This is something that's been going on for a long time. And then you got to, if you're President Trump, pretend that you're taking some huge action and actually manage to do something that's pretty hard, which is offend Canada.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, listen, the president, again, the trouble was on the Mexican border, on the southern border. Then all of a sudden he comes out with this, and the Canadian, our neighbors to the north. It was asked if by him today or at the press conference at the White House briefing, whether this was sort of something to send a signal, or was this to change topics? What do you think of this?
Well, look, first of all, I come at everything that Donald Trump does as it being part of, forget the art of the deal, it's the art of the distraction. Today, the press day was his daughter Ivanka getting hissed and booed in Germany. His wall hit a wall. Michael Flynn is in deep hot water. And so, let's start a confrontation, a trade confrontation with Canada. So now America, in addition to having to hoard your tequila and your avocados, you're also going to have to hoard your maple syrup and your Canadian whiskey. But there's something I want to do before we continue talking about this, which is commend Stephen Moore. If we were in the same city, I think I'd go and give him a kiss on the forehead. Night after night, we come on TV and we hear Trump supporters who are incapable of finding any fault with him, even when we know that in principle they disagree with him. What Stephen Moore did today was say, I am a Trump supporter, but at my core, my principles, I am not compromising that in order to excuse or justify what he's doing. And for that, Stephen, I commend you, and I hope other people take more of an example from what you did tonight, because I'm bored of talking and confronting crazy people saying crazy
thank you for
things
saying
night
that.
after night.
Let me just make a quick comment about that. Look, I don't enjoy, disagreeing with the president because I like the president and I support most of what he does. But, it's interesting, Don, the first time I met with Donald Trump, and he asked Larry Kudlow and myself to work for his campaign as economic advisors, I remember we said to him, but Donald, we don't agree with you on trade. And this is something I kind of admire about Trump. He said, well, look, we can agree to disagree on that issue, but I want your help on tax issues and so on. And I think that's an admirable feature of Donald Trump. But you're right. On this one, I just don't see the sound economics here, and it's hard to defend. I'm a free trade guy.
Mm-hmm. Jason, let's talk about it because we mentioned the Prime Minister Trudeau and President Trump because just a couple of hours ago they spoke on the phone about today's tensions. And I just want to read part of the statement that's just released by the White House. President Donald J. Trump and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke today. The two leaders discussed the dairy trade in Wisconsin, New York State, and the various other places. They also discussed lumber coming into the United States. It was a very amicable call. Prime Minister Trudeau's press office just released their own statement about this call, which gave a lot more detail about the discussion. This is a bit of a different tone, and here's what they say. The Prime Minister stressed that the government of Canada will vigorously defend the interests of the Canadian softwood lumber industry, and the statement also said that Canada-U.S. dairy trade is trade which heavily favors the U.S. F-A-V-O-U-R-S, by the way. So, Jason, what are your thoughts on this?
It sounds like it went really well. It sounds like what happened was President Trump continued to do what he does, which is make everything, Anna says it's about the distraction. I think another way to put it is it's about the sale. I mean, he's a salesman. He's not an honest salesman. He goes out and he's constantly trying to figure out how to sell. And then when it comes time to actually do things, he's not delivering value. And that's what we're seeing here, right? It's all talk, all the time, all presentation, and no ability to follow through. I mean, today really should have been a layup, right? I mean, what he was doing was, it's not a totally unreasonable thing. I mean, it's the kind of thing that usually wouldn't even be news. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't get through it. It's one step forward, two steps back. That seems to be how it works with presidents.
All right, stand by. We got more to come. I need to get to the break, but we're going to talk about the wall when we come back. Is it going to be built? Who's going to pay for it?